Donald Trump lost it on national television this weekend and proved to anyone watching that he has absolutely no way to defend his big, ugly lie. You know, the one he returns to anytime he's faced with a question that he can't answer. Before storming off an interview with NBC's Meet the Press, a combative Donald Trump was unable to answer questions about the war in Iran, the war he started, or the dire economic conditions American farmers are facing due to his tariffs, or whether his deeply unpopular $1.8 billion slush fund is, in fact, dead. Instead, he retreated to familiar territory, lies about the 2020 election and the integrity of America's election systems writ large, pulling out the January 6th playbook to cast doubts on the results of Los Angeles mayoral primary. Trump is trying to spin California's standard lengthy ballot counting timeline to cast doubts on the integrity of the vote. As the reality TV star he endorsed appears unlikely to make it to the runoff, giving us an alarming preview of what we can expect come November's midterms in the process. Watch.
They sent people to jail who did nothing wrong.
Just to be very clear, there's no evidence of what you're saying. But let me ask you about Todd Blanche. Let me ask you about Todd Blanche.
Listen to me.
Let's talk about Todd Blanche.
There's tremendous evidence. There's nothing but evidence.
The
election was rigged. It was a dirty election. And it's happening again right now in California.
You've never presented evidence.
It's happening right now in California. Right now, it's look at what's happening in California.
Where's the evidence to that?
It's
the
4 days.
The Republicans are doing well in
California. No, they're not. They're dropping fast because it's a rigged election. Let me tell you, it's 4 days, and they aren't even close to coming up with.
That's how they count the votes.
You know why they're doing that? Because they're cheating on the election.
Do you have evidence to support
all
that?
All I have to do is look. All I have to do is look.
That's not evidence.
And I listen to people, and let's see what happens.
But, sir, that's not evidence.
Do you think it's appropriate?
That's how they count the votes in California.
Do you think it's appropriate that they have an election and 5 days later they're nowhere close to picking a winner?
State and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging the votes to be counted quickly. That's how they vote in California.
They're crooked, just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
really.
Let's
well,
continue.
You play right into their hands.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid. You play right into their hands with this rap. You know that these elections are rigged. Your network knows that they're rigged. You know that I won an election in a landslide, and I got 94% bad press.
But, Mr. President,
you know why I got that? Because you have no credibility.
But you've never presented evidence that it was rigged. Let's keep talking about. I want to talk about Todd Blanche.
You have more evidence. There's more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk about
your elections in this country. We're like a third world country.
But, sir,
your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But, Mr. President,
you're one-sided crooked networks. Right? Let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
That warning that Donald Trump is still set on undermining our democracy is where we begin today with voting rights attorney and founder of Democracy Docket, Mark Elias. And with me at the table for the hour, writer and editor for Protect Democracy, Amanda Carpenter. I cannot imagine two better people to have this conversation with. Mark Elias, before we get to all the evidence that he cannot show us, despite his ability to send some staffer to Kinko's to print out beautiful images of the bunker that he is currently building akin to the White House, tell me, what does it mean for democracy to have a president of the United States continue a years, nearly decades-long lie that our fundamental right to vote is not, in fact, fair and free?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back even further than that. I mean, Donald Trump in 2012, the night that Barack Obama won re-election, he was posting lies about the elections. But you're right. Since he became a candidate, since 2016, when he defeated Hillary Clinton, he has been lying about voting. He's been lying about elections. He's been lying about election results. I mean, he lied about the election results in California following the 2016 election. And he has been lying about elections ever since. And the problem is that as much as you and I and Amanda can push back on this, and as much as we can defeat him in court and we can explain the truth, it is wearing down our democracy. It is wearing down our institutions. It's wearing down our guardrails. It is wearing down the people like us who, frankly, get exhausted at pushing back on this. It is wearing down the election officials who are right now trying to count ballots in California and are being attacked. And so, we have to steel ourselves for this, but we also have to understand that it does take a toll. It does take its price on democracy.
Your last Democracy Docket post was about hope, so I am not listening to you for a second when you tell me that you, of all people, are worn down, Mark Elias. Isn't it interesting to you that he hasn't even come up with something to fill the void when he's asked for evidence? I mean, there's not even at this point, Mark, like a knee-jerk reaction to point to something or anything. We're just supposed to be taking him at his word. And I understand that's because no such evidence exists. But I wonder at this point, Mark, who's buying it?
Yeah, you're exactly right, by the way. And you're right. I did write today for Democracy Docket about the importance of hope. And we all need to have hope, right? Like we can both be sort of weary of it, but also say we're not going to give into it and say that we're not going to become hopeless about it. And we're not going to let him win by losing faith in our ability to fight back. I think that Donald Trump's attack on California has two particular aspects to it. The first is that he cannot stand the fact that the people of California cannot stand him. I mean, they keep voting against him. They keep succeeding as an economy, and he can't stand that. The second, though, is that if he wants to steal the 2026 election, if he wants to subvert the outcome, like Willie Sutton went to Banks because that's where the money was, he's going to California because that's where the seats are. And so if he wants to, steal 8 seats, 10 seats, or call a question, that's where he needs to go. But he doesn't have any evidence, and this is your point. By the way, one thing I'd add is that you'd think if you were going to steal elections and you were the state of California, like you wouldn't take your time, right? You'd be able to do it right away because after all, you'd be stealing the outcome of the election. The fact that these election officials are day in, day out, toiling in public with full transparency, trying to get it 100% right is actually the opposite of what you would expect if you were trying to do something untoward.
Amanda, I was struck by the fact that the first assistant U.S. attorney in California who came out with the statement alleging that there was potential fraud, that they were going to investigate because he is carrying Donald Trump's water, says the reason I believe there's the possibility of fraud is because California doesn't require ID and because we have this vast system of mail-in voting. So I went over to the internet, which is available to almost all, and Googled, what is the cases of voter fraud when it comes to mail-in voting? According to Brookings, it's 0.00004%, right? Like, we're not talking about a thing that is real. Why this particular interest in sowing doubt in mail-in voting?
Yeah, because mail-in voting is where they think they can exercise some control. I mean, look at what happened in this interview. Does Donald Trump actually care about the L.A. mayor's race? Do they actually care about boosting
reality
Spencer
TV
Pratt,
stars have to stick together, Amanda.
Who was slinging, crystals on the internet 5 minutes ago. Mm-hmm. What they're interested is continuing this conspiracy about mail-in ballots so that they can have people in place like Todd Blanche or Bill Pute so that they can launch these fake investigations to disrupt the process and deny results that they don't like. You were right. This is absolutely about spreading lies about the mail-in voting process. Because you look what the U.S. Postal Service, of all places, a couple of weeks ago, they proposed a rule so they would create a national mail-in voter database so that Trump appointees could disqualify people from the voter rolls. They want to nationalize mail-in voting so that they can take it over. That's what's happening behind the scenes here. In front, we see Donald Trump melting down, saying the same stuff he's been saying, as Mark pointed out, for the last decade. But behind the scenes, they're putting things in place to deceive people about mail-in voting, to disrupt the process and deny the results with these loyalists that they put into place.
Let's talk about some of those loyalists. I want to play you both. These are the legal advisors who were surrounding Trump back in 2020 as opposed to the legal advisors who were surrounding him now. Take a look.
I made it clear I did not agree with the idea of saying the election was stolen and putting out this stuff, which I told the president was bullshit. And, I didn't want to be a part of it, and that's one of the reasons that went into me deciding to leave when I did. I observed, I think it was on December 1st, that, how can you can't live in a world where the incumbent administration stays in power based on its view, unsupported by specific evidence, that there was fraud in the election.
On the integrity side, we're doing an absolutely terrible job And the American people are right to question it.
California's election law allows ballots postmarked by Election Day to be counted and permit same-day registration. That means tabulation typically continues for weeks. And that doesn't sound like fraud. That you can argue whether the law makes sense, but that doesn't sound like a fraudulent situation.
No, there's a great phrase: opportunity for fraud.
Mark Elias, talk to me about the, quote, opportunity for fraud and the way that idea is perpetuated when it's not just the president of the United States who is saying it, but all of the lackeys around him.
Can I just ask a question? Why the hell is the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York opining on election law in California? I mean, doesn't he have enough to do in Manhattan? Maybe he should lock up some Wall Street criminals. Instead, he's sitting there, talking about opportunities for fraud in California. And by the way, his job is to investigate crimes based on evidence and to bring charges where they exist, not to be a roving political reporter about opportunities for fraud under election laws he knows literally nothing about. I mean, the fact that this is what the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York is talking about tells you everything you need to know about the corruption of this Department of Justice. Because this guy knows that his bread is buttered by having something provocative to say when dear leader is watching TV, even though he's sitting in a studio in New York City and opining about California election law. It's a bunch of nonsense. There's no opportunity for fraud because people are validating ballots in public. There's no opportunity for fraud because the U.S. Postal Service is too slow in delivering the mail. It is an insult to voters. It is an affront to democracy. And it is part and parcel of what is wrong with this administration, that this guy who's supposed to be, tracking down terrorism or Wall Street criminals is instead doing Donald Trump's bidding by insinuating nonsense about California.